Hello everyone, welcome to our virtual yoga class. We'll go ahead and begin class in a seated position. I recommend coming into a cross-legged position, and as you do so, notice which leg is out forward and see if you can switch it out in the spirit of seeking balance, and also noticing that we tend to favor different parts of our bodies. Lengthen your spine, draw your shoulders down. Your hands can rest on your knees, or you can lift your palms up towards the ceiling. So notice the difference here. I like to emphasize it's these subtle little movements, subtle different ways that we can move our bodies that creates a different inner experience. Eyes open or eyes closed, inhale, and then exhale. Let's go ahead and sigh it out. Inhale again. Notice a type of inhale that begins at the belly. So that full belly breath, belly expands. Optional, you can exhale, sigh out, or just open mouth exhale. Notice your sit bones grounded on the floor. Lengthen your spine. Notice your shoulders, draw them down. Chin is neutral. As a reminder, we are cultivating a practice, shifting our attention to our bodies. And it takes time to drop down and to check in. And we'll be doing so continuously throughout the class. Intentional inhale and exhale. We'll take a breath for the day we've had so far. A breath for this moment. And a breath for the rest of our day. Deep belly breath, optional exhale, side out. If your eyes are closed, gently open your eyes. We're going to bring our shoulders up close to our ears and then draw them down a couple of times here. Now, as you're drawing your shoulders up and then drawing them down, purposely knit those shoulder blades closer together. You're lifting the shoulders and then knitting your shoulder blades closer together as you release your shoulders down. Inhale up and then back. Now we have a tendency that when we're working on these shoulder shrugs that we lift and then lift back. So you can take a few times there, but also in an effort for balance, lift your shoulders up close to your ears and then roll them forward. See if that creates a different experience or sensation around the tops of the shoulders there. Rolling them up and then rolling them forward. Feels a little different here, it's a different experience than rolling them back. One more time here, lifting shoulders up towards your ears and then draw them down. Release your chin towards your chest and then hold and remain here. And then lift back up, neutral position. Take your gaze over your right shoulder and hold. Opposite side, look over your left shoulder. Back to center, lift your chin up towards the ceiling, open up the throat. Release, come back to center. Inhale, lift your arms up overhead. Interlace your fingers, palms up towards the ceiling, stretch towards the left side of the room. You're inviting that side body stretch there. Also around the right shoulder. Chin is neutral, you can keep your gaze down towards the floor. Back to center, opposite side. Inviting an intentional breath, inhaling deep belly breath, exhaling. Releasing, come back to center, release your hands, interlace your fingers behind you and extend your elbows. Take your gaze up towards the ceiling, lift your chin and hold. Shoulder blades are drawn closer together, remain here. And then release your hands. Now take that right hand, grip your left knee with your right hand, twist towards the left. You're using your grip to intensify that twist. Take your chin towards that left shoulder and then back to center. Opposite side, left hand grips that right knee, twist towards the right. Use your grip here on your knee to intensify the twist. And then back to center. From here, your choice, cup your forearms with your hands, or reverse prayer, both palms touch and you lift your hands as high as you can. 2 breaths here. Inhale. Exhale. Release. Interlace your fingers together. Draw your shoulder blades closer together. Lift your gaze. Lift your chin. Look up towards the ceiling and fold. You're opening throughout the chest, rounding your shoulders back, knitting your shoulder blades closer together. Remain here. And then release. From here, lift your arms up overhead. Interlace your fingers, round your spine, chin towards chest, and fold. You're purposely rounding your spine here, tucking your chin towards your chest. Palms face the front of the room. And then release. From here, lengthen your legs out in front. We're going to go ahead and flex our feet and lengthen our spine, noticing that natural stretch that opens up around the hamstrings just by lengthening our spine and flexing our feet. Now, as I'm flexing my feet, I'm pressing my heels towards the front of the room, or at least I'm imagining pressing my heels towards the front. Hold here. Then inviting a little bend to your knees. Start to drop your belly down towards your thighs, leading through your chest, leading through your belly as you fold. Your hands can reach anywhere. They can remain resting on your thighs. You can reach for your shins. You can go towards your toes. Now, we'll remain here about 5 breath cycles. Use your breath to assist you to notice where your boundary is and fold a little deeper. Inhaling and exhaling. Notice your boundary. Stretch into that boundary, not to a point that's painful. Deep belly breath. Notice where the tension is. Release that tension. One more breath. And release the pose. From here, soles of the feet touch. Lengthen your spine, draw your shoulders down, and then fold over. Another 5 breaths here. Inhaling and exhaling, feeling into the stretch, breathing into the stretch. We're using our breath as a focusing tool. That breath is there to support us as we're working on our strength, flexibility, and balance, as well as building that bridge of our physical, mental, emotional body. We become much more absorbed in our bodies when we're breathing into the experience of our bodies. Right now, we're stretching, dropping our belly towards the floor. Our chin is neutral. We notice where our boundary is, breathe into that boundary and fold a little deeper, and it can always be very subtle. Inhale here. Exhale. One more breath. And release the pose. Transition into your tabletop, making sure your hands are right beneath your shoulders and knees are about hips width distance apart. Take one cow pose, lifting your tailbone, lifting your chest. Let's remain here in our cow pose. An extra breath, inhaling, exhaling. And then round your spine, remaining there, an extra breath. Tuck your chin towards your chest. Inhale here, exhale. Hold, pressing through your palms, and then release. Lengthen that left leg so it's parallel to the floor. Bend your knees, stack your hips. Open up around the glutes and hips here. Stabilize here through your palms. Hold. And then release your knee down towards the floor. Opposite side, lift that right leg, bend that right knee, stack your hips to the right, hold. Release your knee down towards the floor, double check your knees, they're hips width distance apart. One more time, lift your left leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. However, this time, press through your palms, round your spine, knee towards your chest. Hover. Chin towards chest, knee towards chest, press through your palms and release. Take a breath. Opposite side, lift that right leg, bend your knees, stack your hips, and now round your spine, knee towards your chest, chin towards your chest, hover. Release your knee back down to the floor, and now at your own pace, inhale up into your cow pose. Exhale, round your spine into your cat pose a few times with your breath. Inhaling up and exhaling, rounding your spine. Shift your attention throughout the length of your spine. You're protecting that lower back, mid back, upper back, all the way up to the neck. Simultaneously, you're opening throughout the chest as well. Inviting a deep breath. That breath is that bridge to this present moment. One more round. Inhale up, cow pose. Exhale, round your spine, cat pose. Release, come back to a neutral position. Hands are right beneath shoulders. Press that right hand onto the floor. Lift your left arm up towards the ceiling. You're pressing that hand back. Hold. Either take your gaze up towards the ceiling if it's comfortable. If it's not, drop your gaze down towards the floor. Hold. You're holding the pose, not your breath. And then release. Opposite side, lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. Hold. Breathe into your side body. Breathe into that extended arm. Release your hand and then lift up to your downward facing dog. In your downward facing dog, your hips are lifted up towards the ceiling. Your heels are lifted. You're grounding through your palms. You bring your chest closer towards your thighs. Deep belly breath, belly expands. And then plank pose, hold your plank pose. Inhale here, exhale. You're lifting your core up towards the ceiling. Lift back up, downward facing dog. Inhale here. Exhale. Plank pose, hold your plank pose. Inhale, exhale, you're engaging around the glutes, the quads. Lifting your core up towards the ceiling. And then lift back up, downward facing dog. Deep belly breath. Last round. Plank pose, hold your plank pose. Inhale here, exhale. Lift back up, downward facing dog, deep belly breath. Lift your left leg, bend your left knee, stack your hips to the left, and now left knee reaches towards that left elbow, hover. Lift your leg, bend your knee, stack your hips. Left knee towards that right elbow, hover. And then lift your leg, bend your knee, stack your hips. Release your foot back down towards the floor. Take a generous breath, lift your right leg. Bend your knees, stack your hips. Deep belly breath. Right knee reaches towards that right elbow. Lift your leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Release your foot back down towards the floor. Drop your knees and then shift down into your child's pose. Either knees towards the edges of your mat or knees close together. Notice the quality of your breath. Two more breaths here. Inhale. Exhale. Next breath. Exhale, your choice, open mouth, exhale, release. Your child's pose, shift back into your tabletop, hands right beneath your shoulders. Press that right palm onto the floor, lift your left arm up towards the ceiling, hold. And release. Opposite side, lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. Release your hands, lift back up. Downward facing dog. Inhale here, exhale. Take your gaze right between your hands. Walk or jump up to that forward fold. And then slowly roll up to standing here. You're lengthening your spine. Your head comes up last. You're drawing your shoulders down. Palms face the front of the room. Notice your heels, perhaps lift your toes here. Notice the base of your spine, up to your neck, up to the crown of your head. Check in with your shoulders. We have a tendency to crunch our shoulders up close to our ears. Draw them down. Eyes opened or closed. We're practicing the more difficult part of yoga, noticing that inner stillness. We're taking an inhale and exhale for the day we've had so far. An inhale and exhale for this moment. And an inhale and exhale for the rest of our day. If your eyes are closed, you can start to gently open your eyes. Let's lift our palms, or let's lift our arms up overhead. Interlace your fingers, palms up towards the ceiling. Lift your heels halfway or all the way up. Hold here. Find a point to focus on. Concentrate on that point. You're activating strength and you're activating balance here. Draw your shoulders down. Find that sensation of effort and ease in the body. It's a paradox as we move through all the poses. There's effort and ease. A steady breath. Invites that steady mind. Release your heels, dive all the way down, forward fold. Now once in that forward fold, hands to your shins, inhale halfway up. And then exhale, release. 2 more times. Inhaling halfway up. Making sure you drop your head and relax your head as you fold. Third round, inhale halfway up. Exhale, release, fold down. Let's sweep our arms up overhead. It's more energizing when we lift our arms up. Hands come down to meet in front of your heart center. You're noticing your left hand press against right hand. Right hand press against left hand. We're continuously arriving from one moment to the next to this moment. Release your hands. Second round, lift our arms up overhead. Interlace your fingers, palms up towards the ceiling. Lift your heels. Notice that effort and ease. Invite an easy breath here. That breath supporting your strength here, supporting your balance. Inhale, exhale, release your heels. This time, release your hands and then interlace your fingers behind you. Draw your shoulder blades closer together. Bend your knees and then fold down. Your knees are bent. Elbows extend behind you. Draw your shoulder blades closer together. And then release your hands, hands on shins. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Second round, inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Third round, inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Your choice how you come up to standing. Make it purposeful. Make this part of your practice. Wherever you're at, you're lengthening your spine. Either hands framing your hips or hands in front of your heart center. Generous breath. Inhale here. And exhale. Release your hands. Come into a T. Your arms are going to lift up to a T. Notice your hips. Hips are squared towards the front of the room. Leading through your chest, twist towards the right. So your hips are naturally going to open up towards the right, but to the best of your ability, see if you can twist, keeping your hips squared towards the front. You're anchoring through your feet. You're taking your gaze over that right hand and then back to center. Opposite side, twist towards the left, leading through your chest, doing the best that you can and keeping your hips squared towards the front. Take your gaze over that left hand. And then release. Come back to center. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Interlace your fingers, palms up towards the ceiling. Lift your heels halfway or all the way up. 3 breaths. Second cycle of breath. And third cycle of breath. Release your hands, release your heels, interlace your fingers behind you, draw your shoulder blades closer together, bend your knees, fold all the way down, forward fold. Extend your elbows, your arms out behind you. 1 breath there, and then release your hands to your shins. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Third round, inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Third round, inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Your choice how you come up to standing. Make it intentional. You're grounding through your feet. You're supporting your own personal practice here. Hands framing your hips or hands in front of your heart center together as a clasp. We inhale here, exhale. Perhaps we sigh it out. We draw our shoulders down. Release your hands. We'll shift into our warrior 1. Taking our left foot forward. Take your right leg back. That right foot is in a diagonal. That left knee is in a 90-degree angle. Hips are squared towards the front. Lift your hands, lift your arms. You can either lift your gaze up towards the ceiling, there's an arch to your spine there, or gaze straight ahead, tuck your core in. Your legs are these scissors attempting to close, but they can't. Fold. Release your hands. Cup your forearms with your hands. Dip your chest so it's parallel to the floor. You can lengthen that left leg to support you here. So most of your attention can start shifting into that left hip, left glute, left hamstring. Hold here. Chest is still parallel to the floor. Release your hands down towards your shins or the floor. Drop your belly towards your left thigh. Relax your neck. Drop your head. Breathe behind your knees, to your hamstrings, hip, and glute. Hold the pose. Hands directly beneath your shoulders. Place your weight on that left foot. Lift that right leg as high as you can. Belly drops towards your thigh. Relax your neck. Right foot meets that left foot. Hands to shins. One round. Inhale, halfway up. And then exhale. Release, step back into your downward facing dog. Hold your down dog here. Chest moves towards your thighs. Ground through your palms here. Inhale, exhale. Plank pose. Hold your plank pose. Inhale here, exhale. You're lifting your core up towards the ceiling. Lift back up, downward facing dog. Inhale here, exhale. Second round out of 3, plank pose. Hold your plank pose. Take a breath. Inhale here, exhale. You can always come into a supported plank with knees on the floor. Lift back up, downward facing dog. Deep belly breath. Lift your heels, lift your hips. Plank pose. Hold your plank pose. Inhale here, exhale. Come back up to your downward facing dog. Take your gaze right between your hands. Walk or jump up to that forward fold. Your choice how you come up to standing. Hands meet in front of your heart center. Or hands frame your hips. Notice where your breath is right now. Warrior 1, we take our left foot forward, step our left leg back. Nice 90-degree bend to that right knee, hips square towards the front of the room. Lift your arms, either lifting your gaze, lifting your chin, there's an arch to your spine here, or tuck in your core, gaze straight ahead. Keep a bend to that right knee. Inhale. Exhale. Release your hands, cup your forearms with your hands. Start to extend that right leg. Release your chest so it's parallel to the floor. Start to shift your attention to that right hip, right glute. Hamstrings as well. Inhale. Exhale, start to drop that belly down towards your thigh. Release your hands towards your shin, or your hands can frame that right foot. Relax your head, relax your neck. Breathe into that right leg, into your hip and hamstring and glute, behind the knees. Deep belly breath, hold. Inhale here. Exhale. Shift your hands. Make sure they're right beneath your shoulders. Place your weight on that right foot as you're simultaneously lifting your left leg as high as you can, dropping your belly down towards that right thigh. And then left foot meets that right foot. Inhale, halfway up once. Exhale, release, step back into your downward facing dog. Inhale and exhale here. And then down, and then from downward facing dog, plank pose. Hold your plank pose. Lift your core up towards the ceiling. Lift back up, downward facing dog. Take a breath. Second round out of 3, plank pose. Hold your plank pose. You're activating your glutes and your quads, your core strength. Back up, downward facing dog. Generous breath. Inhale, exhale. Last round, plank pose. As a reminder, you can always take your knees towards the floor for a supported plank pose. Deep belly breath in your plank pose. And then let's shift back up into a downward facing dog. From your down dog, lift your left leg, bend your left knee, stack your hips to the left. Bring your chest closer towards your thigh. And then left knee reaches towards that left elbow. Hover here, you're lifting your core up towards the ceiling. Lift your leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Release that foot back down towards the floor. And then opposite side. Lift your right leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Right knee reaches towards that right elbow. Lift your leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Release your foot back down towards the floor. Chest moves towards your thighs. Drop your knees down towards the floor and then step back into your child's pose. Either knees close together or towards the edges of your mat. We'll be here about 5 breaths, gathering our breath, arriving to this moment, finding that bridge of the physical, mental, emotional body. If you have trouble concentrating, just increase your inhale just a little longer and your exhale a little longer than you're accustomed to. Invite a deep belly breath. One more cycle of breath here. Inhale here, exhale. Start to release your child's pose. Transition into a tabletop. Double check your hands are beneath your shoulders and knees or hips width distance apart. Press that right hand onto the floor. Lift your left arm up towards the ceiling. Hold. And then release. Opposite side. Right hand reaches up towards the ceiling. Hold. Inhale here. Exhale, release your hand, lift up, downward facing dog. Take your gaze between your hands, walk or jump up to that forward fold. Your choice, how you come up to standing. Inhaling up. Hands meet in front of your heart center or hands frame your hips. Take one breath, inhale here. Exhale. We'll transition into our balance pose, a tree pose. Take that left foot to rest against your ankle. Noticing how your balance is already activated here. And then see where you're at today. You can keep your foot next to your ankle. You can lift your foot up near your calf. You can use your hands to help lift your foot even higher. So that's one expression here. Focusing here on the legs. Start to notice where you want to place your hands. There's different expressions here as you come into a tree pose. Keep your gaze steady. You're noticing that effort and that ease. Where they're working on strength and balance. Flexibility around the hips. Hold. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath. Release your hands. Release your foot. Let's pedal our feet back and forth on our mat. I want to bring your awareness to your feet. You're grounding through your feet on the mat through the floor. Rest your left heel right against your ankle, noticing the balance already there. You can take your foot higher. You can use your hands to assist you to bring that foot up towards your thigh. With any of these balance poses, you're just getting to know yourself, where you are with each pose, cultivating that balance and that patience. So much about cultivating patience is actually a process. It's not something we naturally have. You have to cultivate it. It's a skill. You're grounding through that left heel. Notice your shoulders, and then notice where your breath is. A nice even breath as you invite a steady gaze. Deep belly breath. And release your hands. Release your feet. Pedal your feet back and forth. Let's contrast that with a chair pose. We're going to come into a variation of our chair pose. So first, bend your knees, lift your arms up overhead. Now remain here. I'm going to shift my position to demonstrate. Remain where you're at. Bring your arms out to a T, and now twist towards the right, keeping your hips to the best that you can, square towards the front. Hold. And then back to center, twist towards the left. Take your gaze over your left hand. Back to center, hold your chair pose, and then bend your knees further, hold all the way down, forward fold. Inhale, halfway up once. Exhale, release, step back, plank pose. In your plank pose, one round. Pull from downward facing dog, shift into your plank. Lift back up, downward facing dog. Lift your left leg, bend your left knee, stack your hips to the left. And then we'll prepare for our pigeon pose. Take your left knee towards your left elbow and then drop your knee behind your wrist. Look behind you and then scooch that right leg back. Top of your right foot is on the floor. You can lift your chest to your balance on your fingertips. And then exhale, release. As you release, determine if you prefer to keep your head lifted. If you keep your head lifted, that's going to relieve some of the tension throughout that left hip. You have the choice of bringing your hands to a fist and dropping your forehead on that fist, or all the way down towards the floor. Remain here about 5 breaths. Drop your belly towards the floor. Inhale here, exhale. One more deep belly breath. And then start to curl those right toes, ground your palms onto the floor. Lift back up into your downward facing dog. Take a breath there, bring your chest closer towards your thighs. Plank pose, hold your plank pose. Inhale here, exhale. Lift back up into your downward facing dog. Lift your right leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. And now right knee reaches towards that right elbow, hover, and then release your knee behind your wrist. Lengthen your left leg behind you. Lift your chest, lengthen your spine, draw your shoulders down. It's an intense stretch. This is an intense stretch throughout that right hip, even the lower back. Drop your forearms towards the floor, either keeping your head lifted to alleviate some pressure around that right hip, or drop your forehead towards the fist or towards the mat. 5 breaths. You're dropping your belly towards the mat. Breathe into your right hip. One more deep belly breath. Start to curl those left toes onto the mat. Round both palms onto the floor. Our last downward facing dog. We lift up into our down dog. Let's pedal our feet back and forth, dropping one hip more than the other. A few times here. And then drop both knees onto the floor. We'll come into a child's pose. Sit down into your child's pose, forehead onto the floor. 3 breaths. Inhale, exhale. Lengthen your inhale, lengthen your exhale. Anytime you need some extra help concentrating. And then shift out of your child's pose. Tabletop, make sure hands are beneath your shoulders, knees, hips width distance apart. We're going to prepare for a needle pose. Press that left hand onto the floor. Lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. And now release your right shoulder onto the floor, onto the mat. And then lift your left arm up towards the ceiling. You can rest that left hand on your lower back or hip. That's an option. Inhale here. Exhale, release. Opposite side, ground your right palm onto the floor. Lift your left arm up. And then release your shoulder onto the mat. Lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. Hold. And release your hand. We'll go ahead and transition here. Lengthen both legs out in front. We're going to open up around the throat by dropping our elbows onto the floor. And then very gently lift your chin up towards the ceiling. And then as you get more comfortable, drop your head all the way back. Hold here. Lift your abdomen up towards the ceiling. Inhale here. And then exhale, release all the way down towards the floor. A little mini Shavasana here. 2 breaths. Inhale, exhale. Belly expands. Optional open mouth exhale. Bend both knees. You want to alleviate some pressure around the lower back. So your feet are hips width distance apart here. Bridge pose. We lift our hips as high as we can up towards the ceiling. You have access to full diaphragm breathing here, meaning your belly is not constricted. Deep belly breath. You're distributing your weight around your heels. You're engaging around the glutes and the quads. Lift your hips as high as you can. And release. Take a breath. Inhale, exhale. Lift your hips up towards the ceiling. Optional here, you can either remain, keep your palms on the floor, or you can interlace your fingers, draw your shoulder blades closer together, and then lift your hips even higher up towards the floor. Take a breath. Exhale, release, inhale. Exhale, and last round. Lift your hips, your choice, palms on the floor, or interlace your fingers. If you interlace your fingers, draw your shoulder blades closer together. You're gonna find some more lift here. Now lift your hips as high as you can. Part of the practice here is not collapsing your hips. You wanna lift your hips as high as you can. Activate around the glutes and the quads here. You're distributing weight around your heels. Hold. Another breath cycle. And then drop your hips down towards the floor. Feet float off the floor. Bend your knees. Grab your knees with your hands. Round your spine. Forehead up towards your knees. Chin towards chest. Remain here. And then drop your head on the floor. We're going to drop our knees towards the left. You're coming into a twist. Arms lift out to a T. And then drop your head towards the right. Scan your body and soften throughout the spine and shoulders and hips. Remain here, eyes opened or closed. Gently breathing. Noticing that your body is entirely supported here. You're not activating your muscles. You're here in this restorative pose. This is where we see how the mental body really influences the physical body when we move into these restorative poses. If we're mentally tense, our bodies will demonstrate that. So as you're laying here, see where can you soften just 10% further? Where is your body tense where it doesn't need to be tense? You're supported by the ground. You don't have to hold yourself up. And now knees come back to center. Drop your knees towards the right. Drop your head towards the left. Once again, scanning your body. Noticing where can you soften just a little bit more. Softening throughout the neck, down the spine. Imagine your knees softening further towards the floor. And the knees come back to center. Lengthen your legs. We'll start to transition into our final resting pose, our Shavasana. However, if there's one last pose you need to feel more complete, take a moment with that last pose. Breathe into that last pose. If you're shifting into Shavasana, notice that you're lengthening that process, settling into that space of rest. If you're exploring one last pose, if you're beginning your Shavasana, take an intentional breath, lengthen that inhale and exhale. It's that breath that's bridge of the physical, mental, emotional body. It helps us understand how to address that strength or flexibility, that balance in our bodies. Shavasana is the pose we hold the longest in yoga. House noise. Shavasana is a pose where we can observe the sounds around us. Observing without judgment. It's a pose to release and let go and to receive and integrate. Soften the muscles around your forehead and your jaw down to your neck and shoulders. Down the length of your spine, softening the upper back, mid back, lower back. And then soften around the shoulders, down to your wrists, palms, fingertips. Soften around the hips, behind the knees, down to your ankles and toes. Start to shift your awareness back to your breath, inviting a generous and a leisurely inhale and exhale. Restore some movement to your fingertips and your toes. You can invite a full body stretch, lifting your arms up overhead. You can also turn to your side, allowing your body to remain heavy and relaxed. Once again, return to that generous and leisurely breath. It's a very distinct type of breath. And after another breath, start to make your way up to your seated position. If you're in a cross-legged position, notice which leg it has a tendency to be forward or on top, and then switch it out, as we did in the beginning of class. Find your posture, invite a generous breath. Notice that when we welcome our breath, we welcome our experience. And notice we're practicing, we're cultivating a practice, welcoming our experience, not judging as good or bad. On that note, we'll seal the class in appreciation and in gratitude of our breath and our experience. We take our hands in front of our heart center. Inhale here and exhale. And in the tradition of yoga, the highest in me sees the highest in you. Namaste.